Right. So this morning, I'm going to talk about a few things. Last night was amazing. Really deep work being done last night. One thing I'd like to talk about is the witness. As we come to these later stages in the retreat, there's really deep work being done, and it's very important that the witness holds that neutrality for the partner. There's nothing like a good witness. If we can just be completely present for our partner, it's really powerful. But sometimes there people can, when they're going through a really big emotional release, sometimes the witness will react, and it happens. But this is part of the process. But the invitation is to hold space for your partner. There sometimes people will reach out and if they'll feel that their partner is in a crisis. And if you feel that that is happening, like you can raise your hand, or just to, if you feel like having a facilitator present would be beneficial, just raise hand while in the breakout room. But the whatever's coming up, we've invited. All of these, doesn't matter what it is, deep traumas and releases and emotions. So it's actually the resistance, or the reaction that creates the crisis. It's not that samskara that's coming up. So when we allow everything to be witnessed fully as it is, it arises and passes away. This is how we become free. So if we evaluate, we react, we feel something is wrong. That's our own mind resisting what's happening. Um, and of course, what you resist persists. Um, yeah. So this is such a difficult thing to really get, because our world is backwards. Our world is an upside down world. This is what the world doesn't understand. We resist and go to battle with everything in the world. The war against this and that, war against terror, war against drugs, and of course they don't go away because what you resist persists. You're um, treating it as other, as if there's this other, um, and like as soon as there's that separation, like the ego itself, that at the very root, that separation is a sort of um, a sort of violence, or a sort of that separation is the beginning. It's the seed of violence. So as soon as you see something as a problem, and resist it, or try to change it, then it just gives power to that ego consciousness. So the reason for the samskara and that ego identification in the first place is something happened, something in life with a charge that was big enough that it couldn't be completely experienced in the moment. So it gets pushed down into the unconscious, and that resistance stays in the body mind until it can be released, until it can be fully allowed, fully witnessed. Um, yeah. So every time we react to the partner, it's an opportunity missed. So the most loving, compassionate thing we can do is just witness, just allow to the best of our ability, and that doesn't mean being cold and inhuman in some way. It just means not evaluating, uh, not not promoting or trying to push in one direction or another, um, just being neutral. Okay, so I'm going to kind of well, first of all, I love what happened yesterday in our in the talk. It is just sort of morphed into the Q&A. So if that happens today again, that's fine. So if there are questions that come up along the way, I kind of like that vibe. We can just go with it, whatever's in the flow, basically. Um, so so I'm just going to start out. I have a little another little Zen story. I have lots of those. And I want to go back to, I talked a little bit about the ox herding pictures in Zen. These 10 pictures that depict the whole path of liberation, and they're not necessarily linear, and it's not really meant to be a map. It's just sort of pointing out certain unfoldings that are sort of universal, but everyone's unique journey is their own. So it's not meant. The ox herding pictures are not meant to be a step by step how to that we try to follow. And it's like, okay, I'm gonna catch the ox now. Now I'm gonna tame it. Now I'll ride it home. Yeah, like they're metaphors for just the bigger picture of what's happening on the path. So it's not meant to be a how-to guide. So yeah, so the last ox herding picture is uh, this character Hotai, who is the laughing Buddha. So this is the image of the Buddha going back into the marketplace, and so he goes back with helping hands. That's what the description says. He goes back with helping hands. So this laughing Buddha is. I love this image because it encompasses really the full expression of what it means to be awake, but not detached from life, to be like the full expression of the human flowering, you could say, the human flowering of human potential. So he goes into the marketplace and just by being, just by living life, he um, he becomes an example, a living example, a living teaching. Um, and the teacher Osho had a interesting take on this. I like Osho talked about a character he called Zorba the Buddha. Um, so for those who don't know, Zorba the Greek it's an old film, but it's about like this character. He's like a peasant character who he's very exuberant and really enjoys life. And so in this movie, Zorba is he shows people how to enjoy life even under difficult circumstances. And he's dancing with life. So it's a beautiful character. So Osho talks about Zorba the Buddha. So we having this capacity to really dance with life, to be with life, to let life come through. And so yeah, I've always loved that image, and I feel that There's a profound teaching and a profound truth in that. Um, so there's a little story about about Hotai, and so he's walking down the street, and there's a student who recognizes that um, he used to be the abbot of this monastery, and so the student recognizes him and sees him in the city, and he knows he's a great Zen master, you know. Um, so the student says, can you tell me or convey to me like what is the direct experience of Zen? What is the direct experience of Zen? So so Hotai, he has this big smile. He's just like larger than life, and he smiles, and he opens his arms and he embraces the student, um, and the student, feels life. They feels this love and this incredible presence, and so the student, is very very moved, and then asks another question. The student says, and what is the highest wisdom of Zen? And Hotai picks up his bag and turns around and he walks away. So complete non-attachment. Um, and I love that story. I think that's it. It's like fully loving, fully embracing everything without attachment. Um, so there's that saying: if you meet the Buddha on your path, you have to kill him. You know, um, and if you haven't heard that before, of course, it's not literal. It means what if the Buddha is something external to you? Sometimes people in their meditation they get these visions of Jesus or Buddha or Ramana, but if it's something external, um, it's not the real deal. It's still a projection of the mind, because everything external is temporary. Um, it's not your true nature. It can only be experienced directly as your own true nature. So so what that means, if you meet the Buddha, you kill him, you kill that image of the Buddha. You let go of that external projection, whatever the mind has projected. So so like in the example of Hotai, you if you meet the Buddha, you embrace him, and then kill him, basically. So the love and non-attachment. Yeah, and these are the two dimensions. There's a beautiful quote by Nisargadatta Maharaj, and he says, "Wisdom is knowing that I'm nothing. Love is knowing that I'm everything. And between the two, life moves." So this non-attachment, sometimes people think non-attachment is, like this disconnect from life. Um, but it's the opposite. It's when we are not attached, it means we've disconnected from the filter. We've disconnected from that, those five skandhas and the preferences and um, the resistance to life. So we feel life directly. So non-attachment is not a disconnect from life. It's actually, inseparable from the full experience of life. Um, so when we are not attached, when we let go of those, the thoughts that form our beliefs and our um, our preferences. It transmutes our experience. So, even emotions, when we have emotions coming up, if we can drop the beliefs that are entangled in those emotions, then, the emotions transmute into something else, into just this aliveness. They transmute into feeling, into direct feeling. Um, so that's part of what we're doing in these dyads. We're transmuting emotions into feelings. So I'll give an example. You know, like every emotion um, is a combination of thoughts and sensations. So take an emotion like anger coming up. So if I'm experiencing anger, um, I'm angry about something. I have a belief in the mind. So, maybe I lost my job and I'm angry at my boss for firing me or whatever it is. So there's a belief there, and then there's the felt sense of that in the body, that resistance in the body, whatever that anger feels like. Maybe there's heat, maybe there's a contraction in the belly. Um, so every emotion is made up of a thought component and and then a sensory component in the body. So um, when we um, let go of the thought, then we're left with this raw sensation. This is the Vedana in the skandhas. Just this pure sensation at the root level of our of this whole perceptual apparatus. Um, so this is a bridge or a gateway. That energy is the bridge. The breath is the bridge. Prana is the bridge. Um, yeah. So any of these emotions that are coming up in our dyads are, if we can stay in the body with it, feeling everything, without going into the story that's in the mind, then these things that seem like hindrances. I love the I think it was Marcus Aurelius said the phrase, what stands in the way is the way. And and the hindrances seem to be standing in the way, but they are the way. It's the way in. If we can feel that anger, we can feel that fear, we can, and anything that's coming up, any aliveness, any energy, that joy, all of these things can, when they're disentangled from the evaluating mind, then it's just an aliveness. Anger is just when we remove the thought about it, there's just an intensity of aliveness, and if we open to that, it's in that opening that things start to move and shift, and that I thought can sort of drop away. So, Krishnamurti was an amazing teacher. He said that you know the capacity to observe without evaluating is the highest intelligence. The capacity to observe without evaluating is the highest intelligence. So just to be with what is arising, just to be, just be with it, and it's such a, a beautiful relief when we can just be with what is here and not have to figure it out, not have to analyze it, not have to achieve something in the future. Um, even, the mind, um, still, when we get this imperative, tell me who you are, the mind still might think it has to find out who we are, but it doesn't. Um, we're not relying on that mind to find out. It's not its job. So if the mind is still thinking there's an answer, um, it's a burden, it's a resistance, it's a doesn't feel alive. It feels egoic, and it is. It is egoic. If the mind is looking, still trying to do something. Um, so somehow, in the alchemy of this process, we're learning to just be open, and we can actually start to love whatever is coming up when we really understand that it is the way in. What stands in the way is the way. So we learn to love our pain. We learn to love the fear. We love the anger, whatever it is. There's some questions popping in here. I'm just going to take a moment. Um, yeah, so there's a question about merging here by Vernon. So yeah, okay, well, let's do that. I'll read that. I think it is. Yeah, this is a good one. Okay. So in the dyad, there appears to be a merging of awareness between two people into a unity, resulting in an experience of love, divine being, and home. Um, the fact that this takes place over Zoom and the parties are separated by great distances suggests that distance and space isn't a factor. Can you explain what is happening? Um, is this in fact a merging, or is it an opening to the same awareness from two portals or something else? Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, in the dyads, it can happen that this oneness is experienced directly, and it's ineffable. It's beyond the mind. So and it's a mystery. So I don't I can't I don't want to explain it away because it's the deepest mystery of our being. So all I can say is you know it. I think what's happening is what's dropping is the illusion of separateness. This filtering mind when two beings, and two consciousnesses, um, are apparently two consciousnesses, that are identified with this body mind. When that the illusion of that separate self drops away, then it's just the truth that's being revealed. So the truth is we were never separate to begin with. So even this idea that we're merging, might feel like that. As the veil drops away, there might feel, there might feel like a progression into that oneness. But the truth is, we were never separate, because when we when we are awake, we recognize that one awareness was always here, always present. Actually, that question is a beautiful lead-in to something that I wanted to share. So I have another little teaching here, and this is from one of my favorite Zen teachers, Dogen, who I've mentioned a few times. Dogen is the founder of Soto Zen, and so this is from something called the Genjokoan, and it's a very mystical sort of teaching. It's like it is a koan, so it's meant to break the mind, basically. So this part of it though is very he sets out the path of liberation in a really beautiful way. He it's very very profound. So it's not very long, but I'm just going to explore it a little bit. And so this Genjo Koan, it means to fully manifest or fully share the koan. That's what the word means. And of course, the koan is these little things in Zen that the teacher will give to the student. Like tell me who you are is a koan. Because it can't be answered with the mind. Or what is the sound of one hand clapping? That's the kind of cliche one. So, and I'm going to mention a few others later as well. These koans, if we really go into them, the mind will will drop. The mind will get exhausted in any attempt to make sense of it. So, but this particular part is it's really if we grasp it, we can sort of feel our way into the non-duality that he's pointing to, beyond the mind. So he says, to study the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to be enlightened by the 10,000 things. To be enlightened by 10,000 things is to free one's body and mind. Actually, this version, in the other version I have, it's to drop off body and mind. So in this one, he says to free one's body and mind, and the body and mind of others. So just like in Vernon's question, this question of merging, dropping away. So when we free our mind and body, there's no more self and other. There's no other mind and body as well. So when when we drop off mind and body and mind and body of others, then no trace of enlightenment remains. And this traceless enlightenment continues forever. So I'm going to go a little bit through this because it's really beautifully profound. It really sums up what we're doing. Like encapsulates the dyads and the dyad process beautifully, and the meditation process. So to study the Buddha way is to study the self. So know thyself. We put attention on the self, as Ramana would say. So, to know thyself, to study the self, is to forget the self. So this is what all this meditation, the dyads are about. The dropping of the identification with the false self. So rather than looking to, the screen of the mind for answers, that conditioned mind that's always in control, we forget the self. So we somehow unhook from that conditioned self, and we can just be here, just abiding in beingness. But this is not the end, though. There's more. So, to forget the self is to be enlightened by the 10,000 things. So, this is described in different ways. There's many different versions of this translation. So, to forget that when we unhook from that mind, then you could say when we become enlightened by 10,000 things, we come into direct experience with an infinite number of things. We open ourselves to direct experience. So we become enlightened by whatever is arising. Um, so, um, so this is um, the Sabakalpa Samadhi aspect of um, awakening, or the sense of merging, or the sense of absorption. So when the little conditioned self is gone, it's like I become what is arising. So I can have a direct experience of whatever it is, and um, whatever's being experienced. So a tree or my partner. I remember at my first enlightenment intensive, experiencing a shower in that, state of presence, like just being one with, the sensation of all of that. Um, so this is, the fruit of awakening is direct experience, but we don't cling to those experiences. We just recognize that it is actually, you know, the recognition and the abiding as this awareness that is the opening into, the kingdom of heaven that is here, all of these direct experiences. Yeah, so to be enlightened by 10,000 things is to drop off one's mind and body, and it's the dropping off of the mind and body of others. So, in other words, it's a poetic way of saying it's one mind. Um, this self and other has dropped away. So no trace of enlightenment remains, and this traceless enlightenment continues forever. So, the self, awareness is not a thing, and yet it's not nothing. We can't point to it, we can't convey it in language. It's this ineffable beingness, that awakens, the traceless trace. You know, sometimes it's said that there's one taste. It's the recognition of one taste. It's seeing the one in all. It's seeing God in all. It's seeing I am in all. Um, for me, I don't use the word God that often, but for me, the God, I like in the some of the Bible teachings, like the Old Testament. They when Moses goes up on the, with the burning bush and all of that. God reveals his name or its name, or Moses realizes that God is I am that I am. Which in some translations, which I like better than the usual Bible translation is I am that I am. But if you look at the translations of people like Rudolf Steiner, it's actually I am the I am. I am the I am. You know? So the name of God is I am. You know? So this it's the gateway to the kingdom that's here right now, the direct experience of life. No more self and other. Wherever I look is the face of God. And we find, in the beautiful teachings of the Sufis, or some of the traditions, they have these practices where they'll recite the name of God, and the idea is to recognize that God is everywhere, or I am is everywhere. But it's not some disembodied God, or some being separate from you. It's recognizing awareness itself, this primordial I amness that it's here dancing as all things. So I'm gonna maybe talk about another koan as well, um, which is a very powerful one to this is one that I encountered when I was at the Zen Center. Not in the word form, not in the koan form, but in a very direct form. And I'll share a little experience I had, and hopefully it'll become clear, how these koans really work. So this is the koan of mu. It's mu. So it's not moo like a cow, but it's mu. It's a Chinese word that it actually, I believe it means not, or no, but it also in Zen it has a very specific meaning, a non-dual meaning. So so in this koan, this comes from it's called the Gateless Gate. It's a commentary from a Zen teacher named Momon. So in the Gateless Gate teaching, there's a bunch of different koans, and so there's a monk, and he asks this master Joshu, does a dog have a Buddha nature or not? So this is a classic Zen question, and and Joshu looks at him and says "mu," and so so the word it doesn't mean no, or it doesn't mean yes, or it means in Zen essentially drop the mind, drop the mind. Like he knew if he answered yes or no to that question, it's he would just be engaging on that level of mind. So the truth, does you know the truth about Buddha nature is not revealed through an answer to a question like that. It's revealed when the questioner drops. So that mu is like you think of it as a sword to chop off your head. you know so when these questions come up, it's you know, we can use mu to uh, just chop the head, chop the mind. And for me, I had a experience at the Zen Center where um, there was a kensho happened, and um, there was just being in presence. And I went to, they have, it's called Dokusan, which you sit in front of the Zen master, and you can talk about your practice or what's coming up. And so it's an opportunity to talk to the teacher. And so I went in and just it was like completely present. There were no thoughts, so we were just looking into each other's eyes. And it was like this meeting, like no person there. And then um, the mind uh, started to formulate a question, and so the teacher, he could see the mind starting to move, and I was about to ask a question. I was going to say something silly like, so what is this? What is this state or whatever? And so he saw, the mind, the question coming up, and the Zen masters have this little stick, and it's like this. I think it's called a dorji, the thunderbolt. So you could think of the thunderbolt actually as mu. Um, so he picks up the stick, and he's like, "Don't," and he's just like really fiercely present, and the mind dropped again, and so that mu teaching, the thunderbolt, just that don't, you know, it landed deep in my being, and it was just like an instant clearing clearing of the mind. It doesn't matter what's coming up in the mind. It doesn't matter how we define or if how what's going on. It's what it's just a very direct transmission, you know, and another name for it is the Zen slap. It's like a Zen slap. Some of the teachers would, the old Zen masters would actually hit their students. So luckily, that didn't happen. But well, actually, that would be great too. That'd be perfect. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, yeah. So I'll just leave you with that. And I see another question here. I'm just going to take a look at this one. Yeah, so this is a big one. So yeah, I have a hard time grasping the concept of non-attachment, especially when there's so much injustice happening in life. Poverty, war, violence towards kids, animals, and women. If we don't speak up and advocate for change, we are just becoming part of the problem and witnessing and allowing injustice to continue to happen in the world. Yeah. So this is a big one, and this, I think this comes up at every retreat. I think every retreat somebody has mentioned this. Um, yeah. So sometimes there's a feeling that if I'm not attached, then I somehow lose my compassion or my impulse to make a positive change in the world. But it's actually the opposite. Um, We don't like non-attachment doesn't mean um, not being engaged in the world or not being moved by life. When we unhook from that ego structure, the ego structure is reacting to all of these things, like all the injustices of the world, which are they're everywhere right now. It's incredible. All of the suffering that's happening. So the ego mind is reacting. It's reacting out of anger, out of fear, out of a sense of indignation or whatever it's doing. And it's that reactive mind that perpetuates all of it. All of this is egoic activity. The poverty and war and inequality, the greed that leads to that. It's all egoic consciousness. So if I'm reacting to it, then again, what you resist persists. I'm going to battle. I'm going to fight the injustice, and so you have this endless struggle being perpetuated. So if I can see my own ego in this endless samsara, then if I can detach from that egoic mind, then energy becomes free to there's an intelligence that starts to come through, a compassion that starts to come through that is it's not a reaction to the world. It's the the bodhisattva of compassion is this that we talked about yesterday. It's this being that we all are, that the true being, and naturally when we see everyone as the one mind, when we realize that we're literally all one, not just conceptually but actually, that's where the true change in the world will flow from, is that recognition, seeing that we literally all are one. So awakening, to our true nature is the beginning of the possibility of a different way of acting in the world. So not fighting against injustice, but actually getting to the root of it, seeing that it's the egoic consciousness itself that's created this separation. So if we can show others that is the case, help others to see themselves, then we're not just helping people, giving them a loaf of bread or whatever it is. Like we can, all of that's beautiful. Of course, we're going to do that. If somebody's, the natural impulse when we recognize the one source is, to extend a hand. If somebody's drowning, non-attachment doesn't mean, oh, I'm just not attached. I'm free of the illusion. I'll just let them drown. No, it's when that energy is free and alive, it naturally flows to help others. When I see the truth that I am another being, then I'm as likely to help that being as myself. So yeah, so all these worldly, to me, all these worldly problems come down to just a failure to know who we are, the truth of who we are. We feel like there's this other out there, this separation. And there's um, a French existentialist named Jean-Paul Sartre had a great phrase, and I interpret this phrase in my own way, but I think he meant it in a more cynical way, perhaps. But he said that hell is other people. Hell is other people. So but it's true. If I have this sense that there are other people, if I'm, my ego is the boundary, creating this duality between self and other. So that is hell. That's the definition of hell, is this separation, you know. So then I go to battle, I want to fix that other rather than recognizing the truth that, that I am not. And whatever qualities I see in that other, um, you know, what I'm seeing in the other is a reflection of where my own heart is at. Um, you know, there's that beautiful saying of Hegel that you know evil resides in the gaze of one that sees evil all around it. You know, so it's a very very deep quote. So you know, yeah. So if I perceive evil all around, um, it's actually in that perception. It's a reflection of my own egoic consciousness. So I'm just gonna take a look at, there's a lot of little things coming in over here. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful comments there. Yeah, okay. So, um, yeah, I think maybe we'll resume the normal schedule. So why don't we take a little break right now and maybe a 5 minute break, and then we'll come back, do the 1 hour meditation, and then we'll jump into the Q&A after that. So, thank you.